Thank you. I would just like to, my name's Elizabeth Meyers. I'm representing myself, and I'd like to bring your attention to this handout right here. A couple of things about the Common Core that, number one, it is definitely a set of standards, and it's definitely a set of standards that, if you look at them, really don't look much different than what we had in the past. They're just kind of have a lot more jargon added to them, and they're kind of mixed up by grade. So yes, I have actually read them. I conducted a comparison between the new, quote, Louisiana standards and the Common Core standards. I have that document, that study, in which is color-coded showing the specific changes. But essentially, the Common Core is a skills-based set of standards. If we go back to the concept of what he was saying a minute ago, is there anything in the standards that say you have to teach this or teach that? No. That is actually a problem. That's one of the problems that I had with it. Was one of the reasons why Louisiana was ranked so high in their standards, according to the Fordham study of 2005 and 2010, was that we were one of the few states that required American literature to be taught, specifically, unlike other states that did not require any American literature in their standards whatsoever. We also had in the high school specific requirements at the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade of certain literature pieces. One of the things you will not see in the standards also is a focus on the etymology of our language. We don't see a historical background of the language, which leads to problems with vocabulary. For example, if you don't know your Latin or Greek roots, although that they have in the standards to talk about roots, there's no real content. If you will look at the NAEP comparison that I gave you, yes, Louisiana has been ranked low over the last, 100 years, if you want to get really technical about it. If you look at the standards, back in the mid-90s actually, they created something called content-based standards in Louisiana. And if you will look at the lines, you will notice the green line represents the students who are eligible for free and reduced lunch. That means our poverty students. That's how we measure poverty in the state. And if you will look at the line that is purple at the top, that is representing the students who are not eligible for free and reduced lunch. You'll notice that between the 1998 testing and the 2002 testing, that's one of the highest jumps in our NAEP scores that we've had in a long time, and then it begins to level out. That is when those content-based standards were put in place. After the No Child Left Behind bill was put into place, which was in 2002, you'll notice that we had a little bit of rise because it takes a year or so, and you'll notice we're flattening out, which is what a lot of states are doing. They're flattening out. However, if you will look at the top at Massachusetts, which is one of the top states in the nation, you will notice because they introduced Common Core earlier than we did, they adopted this a lot earlier than we did, they're starting to reflect a change. And if you look at 2011 to 2013 on that first page, and of course I've got each page showing the different levels. So in some cases things went up, but you'll notice that there's a drop here. In this year, at the end of this year, they have an election in Massachusetts in which they have managed by ballot, a citizen ballot to put on to get rid of Common Core. One of the reasons is almost every single standardized test metric in Massachusetts has now dropped, and they have been very proud of their top 10, actually top 5 ranking, and now they're starting to see drops in almost every single standardized test across the board. And so they're essentially going to jettison and allow the public to vote on it. It's one of the things I told one of the senators here. When I spoke with him, I said, if you want to see what the people want, put it on the ballot and let them vote for it. And if they want Common Core, then it's over. The conversation's over. They voted for it. And if they don't want Common Core, then they vote there. But of course, I was told that was a ridiculous, I won't repeat exactly what they said. But as far as specific standards, if you look at the Common Core, and you read the standards, I read through one particular standard, and as I was reading it, I went, oh, well, that's just our old standard that says write a rhetorical analysis. All that they did was write every single step for the rhetorical analysis into the Common Core standard. So if you just write a rhetorical analysis, you have the same standard Okay, so that's one of the reasons why I have a problem with this, is lacking content, especially literary content. We can go into all kinds of studies. It's lacking. Number one, you're going to hear, oh, you don't want higher standards. There is no independent body, and I'm going to repeat that, none, zero independent body of research that supports that these are higher standards than what we had before. You have white papers from people who created it or are profiting from it who are saying that they're better standards. However, there's not an independent body of research supporting that. It's never been tested or piloted, etc., before it was implemented in our schools. And then essentially, there is a connection between the Common Core, whether you want to admit it or not, or if you want to call us crazy or not. There's so much documentation that it's not even funny. If you go back to Tucker, if you go back to the Clinton administration, go back to the 3 laws that were passed in the 1990s, they are directly connected to setting up national standards. The national standards were necessary, and a national examination was necessary so that you could develop a workforce development model, which is what all of these initiatives are. So if there's any point where you would like to sit down and I can map it out for you with all the documentation, I would love to. But ultimately, Louisiana did this before. In the 1920s, Louisiana implemented something called the State Supervisory Program: standards, testing, teacher evaluation. And it's basically this. It's basically what we're seeing now. They jettisoned that program in 1930s because it was a failure to help increase our state. So we are implementing the same policies we have always implemented before. We have never had local control, unlike what parents say to me, and they don't like when I say this. We have never had local control in Louisiana. What you think about business, innovation means giving things a chance. If you put all your eggs in this basket and it fails, you're taking 70-something plus districts with it. Having local control and local choice allows you a chance to have some incubators that might actually start allowing us to see some changes, and then those incubators, if they're successful, become those for other districts, things that we can try with our own people. But again, the problem with that is accountability. We want to put our thumb on and blame and etc. So I guess the bottom line is this: I choose to have a classical education for my children, and that's why I've pulled them out of the system. A system that I loved, a system that I wanted to work to make better. I was a public school teacher for 20 years. Yes, there were problems, but we were never asked to come to the table and solve them. And when we did, like I was in 2007, and when I went against what the state wanted, my name was erased from the panel because I didn't cooperate with the agenda, if you will. And so I was completely erased off the record as having been there, even though I came to the table with some solutions. Thank you.